The Life Coaching Toolbox is brought to you by Transformation Academy, a leading life coach training organization with nearly 1 million students from around the world. Develop skills and confidence through bite-sized coaching insights and processes. Visit transformationacademy.com to learn more.
Have you ever noticed how just hearing the word sales can make some coaches visibly twitch? It's like an involuntary cringe. Shoulders tighten, smile fades, eyes dart toward the exit. Because for so many heart-centered professionals, sales feels like the opposite of what they're here to do. They want to help people, not pitch to them. They want to build real connections, not pressure someone into signing up. And when the moment comes to talk about their offer, suddenly all that confidence they had while coaching disappears. But here's the twist. Sales, when done right, is not about convincing. It's about connecting. It's about helping someone move toward the transformation they already want, with less fear and more clarity. And when you start seeing sales that way, everything changes. It goes from something you dread to something you master, with joy and integrity. So today, we're diving into how sales training, yes, even the word sales, can actually make you feel more like you. We're talking about why objections aren't rejections, why people love to buy, and how to have powerful enrollment conversations that don't feel like you're reading from a script at a used car lot. If you've ever said, "I'm not good at sales," or "I hate selling myself," stay with me. This episode might just flip your entire perspective. Let's get into it. Let's kick this off with something that surprises a lot of coaches the first time they hear it. Sales is about helping, not hustling. Now, that might sound nice in theory, but if you've ever sat in front of a potential client, heart-pounding, wondering how to close the deal, you know that helping is probably the last word that came to mind in that moment. That's because most of us were taught to associate sales with pressure, persuasion, and, let's be honest, manipulation. We think of scripts, slick tactics, and the kind of tactics you'd expect from a fast-talking infomercial host. But those old-school ideas, they don't work anymore, especially not in the coaching world. If you're a life coach, a healer, a guide of any kind, you're not in the business of convincing someone to do something they don't want to do. You're in the business of transformation. That means your role in a sales conversation is to connect, to listen, to understand. Your goal is to help the person in front of you make the best decision for them, whether that's working with you or not. And when you approach it that way, something really interesting happens. You stop trying to sell and you start serving, and the energy in the conversation shifts. It becomes more relaxed, more real, more human. Let me give you a scenario. Let's say you're talking to a potential client who feels stuck in their job. They're burned out, overwhelmed, and starting to question everything. What they're doing, why they're doing it, and whether this is just how life is supposed to feel. Now, you could launch into all the features of your 12-week program, what they'll learn, how many sessions they get, the price point. Or you could pause and say, "What's been the hardest part about this lately?" And then really listen, because what they need most in that moment isn't information, it's connection, it's being seen. And when they feel that, they start to trust you. And trust is what makes people want to take the next step. So what does this look like in practice? It looks like being curious, not pushy. It looks like asking powerful questions, not delivering a pitch. It looks like saying, "Here's how I can help," instead of, "Here's why you should buy." And the funny thing is, when you stop trying to convince people to work with you, more of them say yes. Because let's face it, no one wants to be sold to, but everyone wants to be helped. Why does this approach work so well? It taps into something core to all of us, our desire to be understood. When a potential client feels like you're genuinely there to help, they don't feel like a target. They feel like a person, and when they feel safe and seen, they're much more likely to open up and open their wallet. Now, real talk, shifting into this service-first sales mindset isn't always automatic. If you've got old programming about what sales should look like, it might take a little unlearning. But the good news is, once you've made the shift, everything gets easier. Your discovery calls feel lighter, your close rate goes up, and most importantly, your clients come in excited, not skeptical. One more note here before we move on. If you're still thinking, "But I have to hustle or I won't get enough clients," that's just fear talking. The truth is, helping and hustling aren't the same thing. Hustling burns you out. Helping fills you up. It energizes you because it's aligned with your values. So next time you're in a sales conversation, remember this. You're not trying to sell them your offer. You're helping them decide if your offer is the right solution to their problem. And when that's the intention, the pressure disappears. Let's explore the next insight because it's the foundation for all sales confidence. Here's something I see all the time, especially with coaches who are amazing at what they do but still struggle to get clients consistently. They don't lack skill. They don't lack passion. They lack clarity. Let's talk about this next insight. Confidence in sales comes from clarity, and I mean real clarity, the kind where you know, without hesitation, who you serve, what problem you solve, and what transformation you create. Because if you don't have that dialed in, sales conversations can feel like trying to dance in the dark. Here's what typically happens without clarity. You're on a call, someone asks, "So what exactly do you do?" And you freeze for half a second. Then you give a vague answer like, "Well, I help people with mindset and growth and, kind of like personal development." And by the end of the sentence, both you and your potential client are lost. That uncertainty, it shows in your body language, in your tone, in the way you explain your offer. And it creates a ripple effect. If you're not sure what you do, why would someone else be sure they need it? Now let's contrast that with clarity. Clarity sounds like, "I help high-achieving women stop people-pleasing so they can finally speak up and own their power, without guilt." Boom, clear, specific, confident. Let me give you another example. Two health coaches are offering essentially the same service. Coach A says, "I work with people on lifestyle, nutrition, wellness, kind of helping them find balance." Coach B says, "I help busy moms regain their energy naturally so they can feel like themselves again, without burnout or restrictive diets." Now tell me, who would you trust more? Exactly. That second coach knows who she's helping, what they're struggling with, and what outcome they want. And because of that, she sounds confident, and clients feel confident investing in her. So how do you get there? Here are 3 clarity questions I give to every coach I mentor. Who is your ideal client? Be specific. It's not just people. Who exactly? Entrepreneurs, moms, couples, retirees? What are they struggling with right now? Not in abstract terms, but the real messy stuff they're actually Googling at 2 a.m. What transformation do you help them create? In other words, what's their after state? How will life feel or look different after working with you? Take a moment and write your answers. And if they feel fuzzy, that's your starting point. That's the work. Because when you get clear on your message, you don't need a script. You don't need to memorize an elevator pitch. You just speak from your core. And that kind of authenticity is magnetic. Now, I want to be honest, clarity doesn't just help your clients, it helps you. When you know exactly what you do and who you do it for, you stop second-guessing yourself. You stop rambling. You stop undercharging. And your whole energy shifts from, "I hope they see the value," to, "I know what I offer is valuable." And when you show up with that kind of energy, people feel it. Here's a coach confession moment. When I first started out, I tried to be everything to everyone. I didn't want to niche down because I was afraid of losing clients. The result? I confused people. My sales calls were clunky, and I constantly felt like I had to prove myself. But once I claimed my lane and owned my specialty, my message clicked, my confidence grew, and my calendar started filling up with clients who were a perfect fit. So, if you're feeling shaky in sales, don't just practice your pitch. Get clear on your purpose, because that's what builds real sustainable confidence. Let's keep going. The next insight might just be the biggest reframe in this entire episode. Now, this next insight, it's a total mindset shift. And honestly, it's one of the most important things you can understand as a coach or entrepreneur. Objections aren't rejection, they're invitations. Let that sink in for a second. Because when someone says, "I can't afford it," or "I need to think about it," most of us instinctively tense up. We take it personally. We think we failed the call, or that they didn't see our value. We start replaying everything we said, wondering what we should have done differently. But what if I told you that objections are not a sign that something went wrong? They're a sign that something's working. Here's why. Objections are a completely natural part of the decision-making process. They're not a flat-out no. They're more like a pause, a hesitation, a moment of vulnerability where the client is trying to figure out if this leap is safe. Because let's be real, investing in coaching isn't just a financial decision. It's emotional, it's psychological, it's deeply personal. And anytime someone is about to invest in their growth, it's going to bring up all their stuff: fear, doubt, scarcity, self-worth. That's what objections are. Not a rejection of you, but a signal that the person in front of you needs more clarity or reassurance. Here's a great metaphor I use with clients. Objections are like smoke. They're a sign that there's still a small fire of uncertainty somewhere in the conversation. Your job isn't to run from the smoke, it's to gently find the source and help put it out. Let's look at a fictional example. Say you're a mindset coach and you're talking to someone who's excited about your program, and then they say, "I really want to do this, but I just can't afford it right now." Old sales thinking might tell you to push harder, offer a limited time bonus, try to overcome the objection. But a better approach? Get curious. You might say, "Totally understand. Can I ask, what were you hoping this program would help you change in your life?" Now you're not selling, you're reconnecting them to their why. And from there, you can explore options together. Maybe they realize they're spending more on takeout and apps than they thought. Maybe you offer a payment plan, or maybe you lovingly let them go, and they come back in 2 months ready to say yes. No pressure, just partnership. Here's why this works so well. People want to feel safe in the decision-making process. They don't want to feel manipulated. They want to feel heard. And when you respond to objections with calm curiosity, it builds trust. I'll share a quick coach confession here. I used to dread objections. I'd wrap up calls the second someone hesitated. But over time, I realized that some of my best, most committed clients were the ones who had initial doubts. Why? Because they were thoughtful. They were serious about the investment, and they appreciated being met with empathy, not pressure. So here's a little mindset reframe for you. When you hear an objection, don't panic, don't retreat, don't launch into a defense. Instead, pause and ask yourself, what is this person really saying? "I can't afford it" might mean, "I don't yet understand the value." "I need to think about it" might mean, "I'm scared to invest in myself." "I'm not sure this is the right time" might mean, "I don't trust myself to follow through." Your role as a coach in that moment isn't to convince, it's to coach. Ask, reflect, hold space. When you do that, you'll turn more maybes into yeses. And even if they still say no, you'll have built a relationship rooted in integrity, and that person is way more likely to refer others or come back later. So the next time someone throws an objection your way, don't see it as a wall, see it as a door, and gently, confidently help them open it. All right, the next insight is going to flip your understanding of sales even further. Here's one that always makes people pause and go, "Wait, what?" People love to buy, but they hate being sold to. It sounds contradictory, right? But think about it. You've probably experienced this yourself. Let's say you walk into a store, excited to shop. You're in the mood. Maybe you even have something specific in mind. But the moment someone follows you around saying, "Can I help you? What are you looking for today? Are you sure you don't want this version instead?" Your defenses go up. You want to get out of there. Why? Because it stops feeling like your choice. It starts feeling like their agenda. Now contrast that with the last time you made a purchase that genuinely lit you up. Maybe it was a course that promised to finally help you launch that passion project. Maybe it was a journal that felt like it was made just for your goals. Or maybe it was a pair of shoes you absolutely didn't need, but they made you feel bold and beautiful. Whatever it was, that moment of buying felt good, empowering, even exciting. That's because we don't hate buying. We actually love it when it aligns with who we are or who we want to be. So what does that mean for coaches? It means your job in a sales conversation isn't to sell your program. It's to help your potential client see how your offer matches the transformation they already want. It's to paint a picture of possibility and then stand beside them while they decide to step into it. You become a guide, not a pusher. Here's a simple example. Let's say you're offering a relationship coaching program. You could start by explaining your 5-step proprietary method and how it's based on years of neuroscience research. But that's not what your client really cares about, not at first. What they care about is the fact that they're feeling disconnected, that they're walking on eggshells, that they're starting to wonder if things will ever go back to how they used to be. And what they want is hope, a path forward, a vision of what it could look like to laugh again, to communicate clearly, to feel chosen and connected. When you start the conversation there, at the emotional level, you're not selling, you're aligning. Because here's the psychology behind it. People make decisions emotionally, then justify them logically. They say yes to your offer because they feel something, seen, inspired, hopeful. Then they justify it with the price, the number of sessions, the format, the results. So, if you skip the emotional part and dive straight into the details, you're missing the most powerful part of the sales process. This is where I see a lot of coaches unintentionally shut people down. They get so focused on proving their worth that they forget to connect with the heart. So next time you're on a call with a potential client, ask yourself, am I leading with possibility? Am I helping them imagine what life could look like on the other side of this challenge? Because when you create a space where buying feels safe, exciting, and aligned, that's when people say yes. One quick coach confession here. I once had a discovery call where I spent 20 minutes explaining the structure of my program, like literally the week-by-week breakdown. The client nodded politely the whole time and then ghosted me. Later, I realized they didn't care about the structure. They wanted to know, will this actually help me feel like myself again? That was the real question I needed to answer. So don't let your passion for your process overshadow the pain and possibility your client is carrying. Speak to them, not just your method. All right, the next insight gets even more personal because it's not just about your client's mindset, it's about yours. Let's talk about something that hits really close to home for most coaches, especially the ones who genuinely care about their work and their clients. You can't be confident in your offer if you're not sold on it yourself. Ooh, that one stings a little, right? Because let's be honest, no matter how skilled you are, if deep down you're still wondering, is this really worth what I'm charging? Or what if they say yes and I can't deliver? That doubt is going to creep into every sales conversation you have. It might not be loud, but it's there. It shows up when you hesitate before stating your price, when you nervously rattle off every feature, trying to justify the cost, when you offer a discount before they even ask for one, when you wrap up a call with, well, let me know what you think, even though you know they're a great fit. And here's the thing. It's not that your offer isn't amazing. It's that you haven't fully owned its value yet. So let's flip that. When you are sold on your offer, when you believe in it with your whole body, your energy changes. You stop trying to prove yourself. You stop over-explaining. You stop hoping for a yes and start holding space for one. Let's make this real with a quick example. Imagine two coaches, both offering the same 8-week confidence program. Coach A says, well, it's $499, but if that's too much, we can maybe do a payment plan or I can knock something off. Coach B says, this is an 8-week transformational experience designed to help you show up fully in every area of your life. The investment is $499. Same offer, totally different energy. One is shrinking, the other is standing tall, and people can feel the difference. Now here's what I tell every coach I work with. If you're not sold on your offer, don't change the price. Change the story you're telling yourself about its value. That starts with revisiting your results. Think back to the clients who've had breakthroughs because of your work, the ones who stopped hiding, started setting boundaries, launched the business, healed their past, found their voice. Reflect on the time and energy you've poured into developing your process, the books, the training, the trial and error. Remind yourself, this isn't some throwaway hobby. This is your craft. So if you feel shaky when you talk about your offer, ask yourself, would I buy this? Would I feel excited, relieved, or empowered if someone offered this to me? If the answer is no, adjust the offer until it becomes a full-body yes, not just intellectually, but emotionally. That's the sweet spot. And if the answer is yes, but you're still doubting yourself, that's where the deeper work comes in. Because often it's not about the offer, it's about self-worth. You might be carrying beliefs like, who am I to charge this much? Or, what if I can't guarantee results? Let me tell you, you're not alone. Every coach I know has faced those questions. The key is to remind yourself, you're not selling certainty, you're selling a container for transformation. Your job isn't to have all the answers. It's to create a space where answers can emerge. When you stand in that truth, your offer stops being something to pitch. It becomes a gift, one you're excited to share with the right people. Here's a coach confession. The first time I raised my rates, I was terrified. I practiced saying the number out loud like 5 times before the call. But when I finally did, the client said, that sounds about right, and signed up on the spot. I realized right then the only person who needed convincing was me. So if you've been playing small, second-guessing your worth, or apologizing for your prices, take a deep breath. Then remind yourself, you're not just selling time, you're offering transformation, and that is incredibly valuable. Let's bring this all together with one final insight that ties every piece into something actionable and empowering. Sales is a skill, and like any skill, you can learn it. Let's stop pretending that being good at sales is some magical personality trait you either have or you don't. You weren't born knowing how to coach someone through a breakthrough, right? You learned how to ask powerful questions, how to hold space, how to listen between the lines. Same with sales. It's not about being charismatic, extroverted, or super polished. It's about learning how to communicate clearly, confidently, and compassionately. And like anything else, the more you practice, the better you get. Let me walk you through what I mean. Sales, at its core, is made up of learnable skills. Things like listening deeply without jumping to conclusions, asking the right questions at the right time, understanding how people make decisions, framing your offer in a way that highlights the transformation, not just the logistics, holding space for objections without shrinking or over-explaining, and most of all, showing up with grounded confidence and presence. These aren't tricks, they're tools. They're the same tools you already use as a coach, just applied in a new context. Here's a story I love sharing with new coaches. I once worked with a brilliant, heart-led coach who had a deep fear of selling. She told me, "I freeze up. I feel like I'm bothering people. I just want them to sign up without me having to talk about money." Sound familiar? We started working on her sales conversations, not by teaching her a script, but by reframing the whole experience. I asked her, what if this call isn't about getting a client? What if it's about giving clarity? That one shift changed everything. She started listening more, asking better questions, and focusing on helping people make a decision, not manipulating them into a yes. Within 2 months, she tripled her client enrollments, not by becoming someone she wasn't, but by becoming more of who she was, with structure, intention, and skill. And here's the real takeaway. She started to enjoy sales calls. Yes, you read that right. Enjoy them. Because when you're not trying to be perfect, when you're not performing, and when you're not attaching your worth to the outcome, selling becomes just another form of coaching. Let me say that again. Selling is just another form of coaching. It's about helping someone move from confusion to clarity, from hesitation to decision, from doubt to commitment. So if you've been telling yourself, "I'm just not good at this," I want you to pause. You weren't good at coaching at first either, or public speaking, or probably half the things you're amazing at now. But you learned, you practiced, you grew, and you can do the same with sales. Let me challenge you with this. Start treating sales as a craft you're building, not a test you're failing. Every discovery call is a rep. Every no is feedback. Every hesitation you face is a chance to sharpen your skills. You don't need to be pushy. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present, prepared, and willing to grow. Because when you do, sales becomes one of the most empowering skills you'll ever develop, not just in your business, but in your life. Let's wrap this all up with a few key takeaways and a challenge you can put into practice. Let's bring everything full circle. Sales is one of those topics that stirs up so much emotion, fear, resistance, doubt, and yet it's also one of the most powerful tools we have as coaches, not just for growing a business, but for expanding our impact. So let's recap what we've explored today. First, we reframed the entire idea of selling. Sales isn't about hustling, it's about helping. When you shift from trying to close a deal to genuinely trying to serve, your entire energy changes. Clients feel safer, more seen, and way more likely to say yes. Then we talked about the role of clarity. Confidence doesn't just come from mindset, it comes from message. When you know who you help, how you help them, and the transformation you offer, you speak with ease. You stop rambling, and you start resonating. We dove into objections and redefined them. They're not rejection, they're opportunities. Moments when a client needs a little more clarity, safety, or encouragement. If you meet those moments with curiosity instead of fear, you build. Then we flip the script on the buying experience. People love to buy. They want to feel excited, empowered, and aligned. Your role is to create a buying experience that supports that, not one that pushes or pressures. We also looked at the internal side of things. If you're not sold on your own offer, it'll always feel hard to sell it to someone else. But when you believe in your value, when you've done the work to see your offer as transformational, your energy becomes magnetic. And finally, we grounded all of this in the most empowering truth of all. Sales is a skill, one you can learn, practice, and get really, really good at. So here's your takeaway challenge. Pick one of these shifts to implement in your very next sales conversation. Maybe it's getting clearer on your niche. Maybe it's practicing your pricing out loud until it feels natural. Maybe it's preparing for objections with empathy instead of panic. Maybe it's rewriting your offer description in a way that makes you want to buy it. Whatever it is, take a small step today, because confidence doesn't come from thinking about doing the thing, it comes from doing it. And remember, you don't need to be someone else to be great at sales. You just need to be more you, with tools, intention, and trust in your offer. That's how you move from intimidation to confidence. That's how you sell with integrity. And that's how you build a coaching business that not only thrives, but feels good doing it. Thanks so much for joining me for this episode of Life Coaching Toolbox.
Don't forget to head to transformationacademy.com/toolbox to download the free Life Coaching Toolbox, which includes 18 coaching activities and essential resources. Plus, take our free coaching roadmap quiz, designed to help you discover which life coach certification or business training is the perfect fit for your passion, skills, and goals. We've helped nearly 1 million coaches around the world find their path, and we'd love to help you find yours. Until next time, keep growing, keep sharing, and keep showing up for the people who need your voice and your vision. You've got this.